for Lock, Wednesday night golf show from awesomemo.com. I'm Ben Raza. He's Jason Roslin. We're both wearing green. Just noticed that. We're ready to rock, coordination style. You're a little under the weather. Pulling a Jordan flu game here. What's the deal down there?
Yeah, no, I just 2 days ago started coughing up some nasty stuff. And you know what that normally means, obviously, right? Means you got some type of infection. So went down to the Minute Clinic, got some stuff, and I'm wired and ready to go now.
That's what we need. You'll have to carry the show. I'm
tired. And we're wearing green, too, because of the waste management. Don't forget, this is the greatest show on grass, right?
There we go. Didn't cross one. I just have a shirt that says Colorado on. But we're going to go with that. It is the waste management. One of my favorites. I was saying yesterday I did the show with Salvetri. This is like, the way they've broken up the golf season now, I really like it. It's like one big tournament kind of a month. But this little stretch is, to me, one of the best times of the year where you have farmers, you have waste management, some really good fields, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, and then throw in Genesis in 2 weeks. And you're right, this 4 week span of call it the end of January to middle of February is great. And then, we get some WGC for a week or two, and then Florida. And then we get, the bulk of the Florida swing with the players. It's great. It's a really good lead in to the Masters, which it looks like DraftKings is going to mix things up as we get into this. They're going to put out $1 million first place for a $7,000+ buy-in. I'm sure we're still going to get the $20 buy-in as well. But if you're looking to chase the big dollar satellites, they just posted those this week. This week, fantasy draft, $1,500 for first place.
That's right. They're starting to pump up their golf. It's early in the season, and as I've talked about, and we've talked about, they sponsor their show, which we really do appreciate. They're rake free. As you guys know, 100% of those entry fees going into the prize pools, and they use the 7 golfer format where your top 6 get through and count. Kind of a different way to play. You can tailor your skill set to it, make some good money over there. If you haven't signed up, promo code AWESOMO. But just to touch on what you said about the Masters, I noticed that too. I'm interested to see how many people that'll be. A $7,000 tournament, if they have $1 million up top, if it's 500 people, that'd be around 3.5 in the pot. I don't know if it'll be that many though.
I'm guessing, if I remember correctly, their $5,000 buy-in, I think, no, it was the $3,500 for Bethpage. That level buy-in that they did, I think they had around 400. So I wouldn't be surprised to see like a 2.5 guaranteed, 1 million to first.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
With that 400 or 500 people. Again, they had satellites all the way down to $47 this week. I know that there's the only one available now is the $700 buy-in or whatever it is. But still, an opportunity to get in a short field and a chance at $1 million at the best tournament, no doubt about it.
Yeah, that would be useful. We'll get into all that, of course, but we do have waste management. Lot to get to. Good. I do like that they have changed up some things. I like to see new tournaments coming, but we have the normal. We've got club twirls. We've got a giant $5, all sorts of things. We also have a reduced field, 132 guys, which I like. Sean O'Hare just withdrew. There's a replacement for him. You can't roster him, of course, but I do like this kind of. It's not a non-cut, but it's not a full field either.
Yeah, it's nice. This time of the year, obviously, with weather and daylight being a little bit more of a problem, they reduced the field size for this week and for the Genesis. The one course tournament around here, the Genesis will also be a limited field. Again, full field, but limited in number. We're used to seeing 144 or even 156 like we're going to get next week. So I really like this one. I love the course. The course, it's so fun, and it's getting better and better every year. 15 to 17. The 15 is a reachable par 5. And then, of course, the famed 16th hole. And then the 17th, which is a drivable par 4, turning into some of the probably could be some of the most exciting holes in golf. 3-hole stretch at least. Obviously, Amen Corner will always take the cake on that. But this 3-hole stretch at the Waste Management is awesome and provides a ton of fireworks.
It's great. This is a good tournament. It's unique, which I think the tour needs more of, no matter what it is. But I remember this tournament every year. And that's one thing that we can say. We've got chat in full force. What's up, fellas? Good to have you here. Ready to get into it? You want to dive in? What do you think?
Yeah, let's dive in. Let's start right off the top. And, I was hoping that they put Rahm and JT at 11-8 and 11-7 respectively. But at 11-4 and 11-2, I'm finding it easier to make lineups with at least just one of them. You could even jam in both if you wanted to, but I think that's going to bring ownership up. Whereas the last couple of weeks, we've seen those higher price guys be a little lower owned. McIlroy only got to, I think, 21% last week. Rahm only 17%. So I see something similar, I think, with these two guys this week. However, the price reduction should bring their ownership up a little bit. If you had to pick one, who are you going with?
It's close. Similar to last week when I mentioned Rory versus Rahm, it was kind of a toss-up. This week, I think I lean Rahm again, to be honest. The price is not really a consideration. They're virtually even. And he may be a little more popular just considering he's coming off the runner-up last week. And he's got a great track record at Waste Management. He's an Arizona State guy. But for me, just a little personal preference. I'm paying all the way up. And then you have a multitude of options if you want to omit both of them.
For sure. I mean, this field is probably the most stacked in the 9K to 8K range we've seen this year. Just a whole viability of plays. So on the Rahm and Thomas front, Rahm has the consistency here and right now in terms of where their games is. Obviously, JT has already won, winning the TOC there. But if I had to pick only one this week, if I was making one lineup in a single entry, I would, and I wanted to pick one of these two guys. And like you said, you can definitely skip them. I would pick Rahm as well. I just think that this course also specifically is a little bit close to him, going to Arizona State, of course, meeting his wife at Arizona State. I'm sure he'd love to win for the local fans. Obviously, they would go nuts. I'm sure the local fans will be pulling for him. Mickelson's not here, so who else are they going to root for? Ches Reavie is also an Arizona State guy, but we won't get into Ches Reavie quite yet. So I would go Rahm as well here. But again, that's not to say I'm fading Justin Thomas. I'm definitely playing him. He's coming in at about close to 17% from the Awesemo guys. I'll probably have just a little bit more than that in GPP. So the guy I wanted to talk to you about, which he just ownership continues to go up. He continues to play great. Webb Simpson. And I think I'm going to fade him again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say always because I truly don't like to have hard and fast rules like that.
Yep.
But Webb, to me, is perpetually over-owned. Now, maybe you can make the case that I'm just not realizing and he should be this popular and this price. The results, especially lately, and even long-term, he's had a fantastic stretch of golf. And I'm not saying it's all smoke and mirrors, but he basically needs to keep that up to pay off these type of tags. And when you have guys $1,000 more that are Rahm and JT, you have guys like Decky, Xander, even Finau. We'll get into that course history.
Yeah,
I find myself not able to get over. So I actually have some Webb exposure. Usually I just flat zero him. That's not the case, but there's no way I'm getting over.
Now, how about in your bigger dollar contest? We expect probably ownership to be even more in some of those contests as his price point is nice. You can pair him up with, a Morikawa or a Sungjae. You fading him in those because that's the stance I'm taking, and I'm like you. I'm playing a little bit in the GPP just to get exposure.
Yeah, I mean it's not even close, not even a consideration in my important lineups. To be honest, okay. I wasn't even remotely on that radar. Similar to you, I had if Webb Simpson wins the tournament, I'm in big trouble. But I do have outs in the sense that maybe I get lucky in a large field tournament because I do have some exposure there.
Big the 44 or the $5. Yeah, there you go. Let's talk about Tony Finau first before we get into Xander Schauffele and Hideki Matsuyama, the next two on the board. And Rickie Fowler, of course. We'll group Rickie and Hideki together, actually. But first I want to talk about Finau. We'll talk the anti-course history, then we'll go to the course history. This is serious now. This is 4 straight here. This isn't like, he missed it on the number last year. No, this is 4 straight cuts he's missed. I don't understand it. He's on a long stretch of golf with a ton of travel again. I think I'm just going to fade again, even though ownership's going to be kind of low.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's people, I say this kind of every time something like this comes up. There's people a lot smarter than me that do deep dives into how important course history, and it's all inconclusive in my mind. To me, it's getting to the point there is obviously something that Finau doesn't like about this course. I don't know if it's the sight lines. Maybe it's some of its variance. I mean, it's not the biggest sample, but it's also not 1 or 2 years. This is 4 straight years, and this guy doesn't miss cuts. It's not some bum. This is a world-class player. So I do like that the ownership's going to be down, but Tony Finau's always somewhat owned. It's not like he's going to be 2 or 3% here, not even close. So I have some exposure just because I think he's a good player still. But I didn't really make a move despite what I was kind of interested in, just seeing that you can get him at a big discount. There's something to that, though. 4 straight miscuts is very, very concerning.
Yeah, and at 9,600, I look, and he had a good week last week. Top 6, a very good finish at a course that he does so well at each and every year. However, his DraftKings points were okay. I mean, Cam Champ even scored more DraftKings points than him. So I take the Cam Champ of this week in my eyes and say, if Matt Wolff is going to put up a ton of points because he loves these scoring events, and he already played well here last year in his amateur start, why would I pay $1,600 more for Tony Finau? And I think I'm getting a relatively similar player there. And maybe that's why we're seeing ownership come down a little bit, because a lot of people are making that distinction. And, of course, looking at that course history. So for me, probably a 5% guy, maybe even lower than that, to be honest with you, this week. But let's talk about now the course history, guys, since we just went from anti-course history. Matsuyama and Fowler are superb here. And you would think so, right? Great wedge game. Fowler can get hot with the putter. Obviously, we know Matsuyama can't. But elite ball strikers in the sense that they don't necessarily drive it a long way, but they're always in play. If you had to pick one, who's it going to be? And are you picking both in certain instances?
Certain instances, I am picking both. Rickie's the defending champ. He's not playing well. I think, Farmers, he continues to struggle, almost like Finau kind of in a way, but it's a little different. Hideki is a absolute machine at this course. Back-to-back winner, and then he was runner-up the year before that. Even last year, he was still quality. Didn't pay off the price, but his approach numbers at this course are insane. Basically, he's gained 10 strokes tee to green every time he's played here. That's just ridiculous. That is where I'm going. He's going to be very popular, but for good reason.
He is. I'll talk about Fowler for a second. What I like is that he bounced back right after the miscut last year and won the tournament, right? Similar start also at the Farmers a couple of weeks ago, a top 10. Not great, but I saw enough at the Amex that his off the tee game looks really good. He's going through a couple of swing changes, relatively minor, but you can tell his irons are not that good. He's lost a stroke, to combined average on the last 2, losing 4/10 at the Amex and 0.65 last week at the Farmers in 3 rounds. I think the Farmers last week had a lot to do with the rough being so long.
Yep.
Nobody gained strokes on approaches that didn't gain strokes off the tee. And as you can see with Fowler, he lost in both. I think that changes this week. If we're really going to get close to 10%, and the Osmo guys have him coming in at 11, I like that. I think I'll go 2x on Fowler here. Pair him up with Rahm a couple of times, and then in the lineups that I fade Rahm or JT, I'll start with Rickie and pair him up with Hovland and the alike. So I like Rickie. Matsuyama, it's not that I don't like him. His course history is elite here. Just he's going to come in a little higher, so I don't think I'm going to go overweight on him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we talk all the time on this show. As long as you're aware of where you're getting leverage, you can make your stand up top. You can make your stand as we get down. There'll be plenty of opportunities like them. Xander, again, for me, it's the same story. I really don't know what to do. Don't have a great feel, and I'm not letting him really define the week. I have a little, but not a priority.
So here's one I'm a little nervous about, is that the off the tee game at the Farmers seemed to be okay, and his approaches were terrible. I watched every shot because he was in a really important lineup for me. So I watched every shot. He missed it on the cut, on the number. And coming down the stretch, he had 3 inside of 10 feet, and he missed all 3 of them. To miss the cut, obviously all he needed was 1. Yeah, I was nervous when the ownership number got printed close to 20% on him again, because I was hoping that maybe we'd get an ownership discount, as finally he breached that 20% number last week and maybe he burned people. Maybe you get some leverage there in this single entry contest. Maybe some people that play that are just not going to play him there. So maybe that's what I'll try and do. The $12 Albatross this week on DraftKings is a good contest. 40K is the guaranteed prize pool on that. Again, like I said, a pretty decent contest. Not an overweight for me, though. And again, 9,400 as we move down the list. We've got two guys with great course history. But I think Matt Kuchar is still overpriced. I know he's coming off a win at Singapore, but, I mean, he only beat Justin Rose. What do you do with Kuchar, who's got, 4 straight top 15s here, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, Kuchar is a guy who's evolved a bit. He had a stretch where he was like, and it was mostly in majors, he would be like 7,800 and he'd just be an obvious cash play. And I would do that. He'd come in 20th and I'd live to fight another day. Mm-hmm. At 9,400, it's much tougher for me to get there. He may play well. I rolled those shares to Woodland. Your boy Morikawa is there. I have a little, and then there's Bryson, who's the guy I really want to talk about. I want to get your thoughts on coming over from the Middle East. Listen, I think he's got a lot of win equity. I always say that about Bryson. He's also the riskiest guy, probably besides Finau in the 9s. I think I'm going to take the plunge, though, and try to hit a Bryson, what I think is an underpriced Bryson at 91.
Yeah, so I'll be the first to come out and say, and if you read our Euro article that Ben and I contribute to, last week I bet against him because the course was playing harder. And so driving accuracy became more important. And I thought, well, Bryson's really struggling with that. He's just trying to hit the ball as far as he can. He came around and obviously had a chance to win it and blew it on Sunday. Yeah, at 9,100, I'm just not sure that his game is all the way matured in this new body. I mean, literally, he's hitting the ball 20 and 30 yards further than he was last year. So this is pretty significant. I'm not quite there, but at 10%, I was able to get at least a little leverage on the field, so I'm a little overweight. He's in, I would say, like my 5th most important lineup, so he gets up there, but he's probably like just on the edge. Like if I wanted to double up on Morikawa, he would probably be the first guy out.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm definitely on the other side of that. Bryson's more important to me this week than you. He was my second man in a lot of balanced lineups, hoping – he's going to have to beat guys like Woodland and Morikawa. That's really where I'm asking him to do. And then, as we move to the 8s, I mean, you got Bubba there, Sneds, Sanjay. There are names. A lot of options, though. That's really what you're parsing. You can't get overweight on all these guys. It's just about prioritizing.
Well, that's the thing. So we'll start with Kuchar and Woodland. For me, ended up becoming victims of trying to get more Rahm and trying to get more JT because I'm in love with the lower 8K, and I was able to find putting Rahm or Thomas with, say, Scheffler or Hovland or Wolf. It was a lot easier to build a little bit more balanced lineup. There's some mid-7 guys that I'm sure we'll get to that I'm in love with. And so it was easier to build a mid-7K lineup, put in 3 of those guys with a Rahm and 2 guys in the low 8s. I just found that those lineups to be projected better. They looked better to me. So I think I ended up getting less of Woodland, Kuchar, DeChambeau, not Morikawa. I can't get under on Morikawa. I think that, remember, he's not qualified for the Masters yet, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm sure that's some motivation for him. He won the Barracuda, and I don't think the alternate event Barracuda gets in. I could be wrong. I don't think it does. So he's still on the outskirts. He needs a couple of more good finishes to get inside the top 50 in the world. I think where is he? 56 right now. So he's 1 more or 2 more good starts, and he's got it. So I still like Morikawa, obviously. How about you for Morikawa? You said you had a little. How about and then let's go Watson and Snedeker, 2 guys that really outperformed last week. Are you going back to either of them this week?
I have some this may subject to change, and I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to say not to do it. My cash team has Sneds, and I don't think that's a good play. That's where I landed for my last guy. And I do think he plays fine. So right now, that's where I'm going with him. Don't have him much else. Bubba, I'm indifferent to. I strongly prefer Bryson. Different situation, but I'm taking the leverage right there. Or I bumped to him, who plays every week, but he plays good. He was fantastic here last year. Did a lot of it around the green, which is kind of weird, but he's such a well-rounded player. I don't mind just taking the slight discount to him if I'm in this range.
Yeah, Sneds has been really consistent. Even at Sony, he gained everywhere. Last week, the Farmers, he pretty much gained everywhere. I just don't know if this is the right course for him.
Me neither, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head. Sorry, 55-23. So no missed cuts since 2013. So it's not bad. I think that's maybe why you ended on him in cash. I think maybe when you looked at him and you said, all right, he's going to play the weekend the way he's playing right now. But maybe I don't get that top 10 that I'm looking for out of a 9K guy. We haven't seen one in the last 4 years, so maybe that makes sense. He is playing good, so I think you have some upside. I'd rather go to Bubba Watson. I think that he showed me a little bit last week. You know, he gained everywhere and gained pretty good. It's excuse me, it's pricey though.
Yeah, it is.
That's the only problem.
Listen, it was kind of I don't want to say an anomaly. It's just it's very hard to gauge.
Right?
Yeah, where he's at, and for me, again, when I have lineups there, I have a little Bubba, but my priority was Bryson, Sungjae Im, or I bump down. You know, really when we get into the next range, you've got the Schefflers, the Hovlands, Ches, Palmer, Wolf. These are guys that all garnered some interest for me as well.
All right, let's take the low owned first, and then we'll go to the higher owned guys. So what I'm looking at here, I've got 4 guys that are coming in under 10% for sure. Brandon Grace, Jordan Surprise Spieth, Cameron Smith, and Ryan Moore. Of those 4, are you playing any? And if so, who do you think is the lowest owned of these bunch? And is that why you're going this guy?
So, all right. I think Brandon Grace is going to be the lowest owned of the 4. I have 0% of Brandon Grace.
0.
I have a goose egg. Okay. Listen, he won in South Africa. He's playing much better. We'll see. Mm-hmm. I'm not there. You'll be happy to know that I have more Jordan Spieth or maybe you won't be happy to know because maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But I have more Jordan Spieth this week than I have had in a very long time. I like the spot for Spieth. We'll see what happens. I'm not hitching my wagons by any stretch, but I'm over the field on Spieth. The other 2 I don't really have interest in either. He's the one guy in the 8s that I got leverage with who was certainly against the grain.
Okay.
Because of Spieth.
Yeah, honestly, we started talking about Jordan Spieth, and literally, my screen share goes down. Is it back up? I tried to do it without any. Okay. All right. Good. We got Jordan Spieth back on our screen. Here's what I'm a little nervous about with Spieth. And when I say I'm a little nervous, listen, he's 8,600 and 7% owned for this reason. But there was a video of him using a putting trainer around the putting green, and it didn't look great, but those were just 2 or 3 putts, The off the tee game was better last week. He only lost a quarter of a stroke, right? Now that was in 3 rounds. But only losing a quarter stroke is good for him. The course last week is not good for his game right now, which is not very good off the tee. No, he's getting better. This course, it will be mitigated a little bit. He's very, very good with his mid-irons. We know he's an elite short game player. So, yeah, he's turning almost into a cash-type play in a cash salary. So for those of you that do play it, I think he's pretty viable to make the weekend here. There's not that much trouble. Plus he's good enough to get out of it with a short game. Miscut here 2 years ago, but that's when he was sick. And it was like his second or third tournament. Wouldn't put too much stock into it. 2 top 10s before that. Of course, I like Spieth. I have my standard 20%, which means I don't really necessarily love him, but I don't necessarily hate him. Normally when I get up to that 50 and 60% with him, I really think he's going to win, but obviously that hasn't paid out for me.
Yeah, those days, maybe. We'll see. Listen, the luxury of something like this now is that if Jordan Spieth gets cut, it's an inconvenience for me, but it's not a derailment. Yep. I can get leverage, and we'll see what happens. So,
any Ches Reavie.
Yeah, well, there is Ches Reavie. It's a good track for him. I'm not a Ches Reavie guy. Ryan Palmer is there. I think Reavie's fine. Listen, you want to go to him, you want to go to him in cash, I get it. I have some. Again, not super hot takey in this region. The guy I wanted to ask you about is Hovland, though. He's coming over. He was a little overseas. He's kind of, I don't want to say the shine is worn off, but Morikawa has surged to the lead, I think. Scheffler's always consistent. Wolf is doing his thing. Hovland is kind of the great unknown. What do you make of him at the course, 8,400? Do you have interest?
Yeah, I do. I have a lot of interest. I think that everything we've seen from this kid in a small sample size has been really good. Europe the last 2 weeks, so that's where he was. You just mentioned it. A missed cut 2 weeks ago because of his putting. Last week, tied 21st because of his putting. He putted really well, and his off-the-tee game was good. His irons were weak. That doesn't seem to be standard for him. I mean, we go on – I mean, how many tournaments do I have in front of me? Looks like seven tournaments, and he didn't even come close to losing on the approaches. So that, for me, is a bit of an anomaly, I think. I think that'll bounce back this week. I'm not nervous about the flight back from the Middle East. He's likely flying with Bryson. No joke, he's probably flying with Bryson on private or at least first class. I'm not worried about that. He's a young kid. Both of them are really young.
It's not.
I like Hovland a lot. At 8,400 on DraftKings, I like him a lot. Sung J M is 10-5 on FanDuel. I wanted to bring that up. I went Sung J M over Victor Hovland on FanDuel just because it was the same price, and I knew that I could get Hovland cheaper on DraftKings. I'm sorry, I don't have the fantasy draft one in front of me. If you do see their numbers, it was just a situation where that one was cheaper than the other on each site, so that's who I picked.
Yeah, and that's the importance of doing that. I don't actually see fantasy draft on my screen either. 10, 5, 8, 4, it's all negligible.
Yep.
But you can find certain guys that kind of are an outlier on one of the sites. I will say I'm interested to see Hovland at this course, see how his game translates. Similar to Wolf, who debuted here. That was his first tournament last year.
Yep.
He, listen, last week was the first time he kind of, and it's only one tournament. I don't want to say this is like the new Wolf, but he kind of bucked the trend. He didn't do it all off the tee. He actually was better with the irons for a change. If that's a thing to, going forward, that's going to be huge. Now, the around the green game was bad again. We'll see. There's a lot of bunkers here, but I like Wolf. I think a lot of people are going to end up falling to him. He fit a lot of builds for me. It was unexpected how much Wolf I got.
Yeah. Coming in at maybe around 10%, I think you're right. Maybe that trend's a little bit higher. Here's the thing about Wolf is that I liked comparatively to Scheffler last week is Wolf was able to get himself to the weekend and then showed that he can play tough courses. He played the South course very well over the weekend. Went from just making the cut into the top 25. So that's obviously a nice surge there. I'm in for that. I think the Rocket Mortgage, where he won, or he won the 3M? Let me check.
Who?
Wolf. Which one? I can't forget. I always mix those two up.
What did he win?
Yeah, he won the
3M.
3M. Okay, there it is. Yep, there we go. 3M, I would say that's a more correlating tournament and course to this course that we're going to see this week. The same type of scoring for the winner, minus 18, somewhere in that range.
Last week, yeah.
Yeah, more so than last week. So that's why I think I'm back in on him. 2 weeks ago, I was in on him. I liked him in the Desert Classic. He didn't play that well. The irons, like you said, came around. So I do. I like Wolf a lot. Though the pivot, the obvious pivot, and they don't normally price guys exactly the same, but they did this week. Ryan Moore, same price, probably half the ownership, and is quietly on a pretty good run of form.
Yeah, he's playing pretty well. He's a guy, he's a little atypical. He's like ZJ, where he's not a long hitter, and he's not really good with long iron. He actually prefers wedges. This is one of those courses where he can kind of get to that. His approach game is good. Putting, long term, he's a good putter. He's actually been putting pretty bad, despite some good finishes. He was really solid at the Amex. So I think you're right. That's probably the prudent play if you're looking to be different. I think you could get, 1/3 the ownership, maybe even more on the straight 1v1 there. I do like Wolf, all things considered, in a vacuum. It's just each team. Sometimes I am making the move to more. Other times I'm keeping it with the guy who I prefer, which is Wolf.
Yeah, totally understand. Absolutely. And now that we're below 8K, we transition into our make the cut segment, because sometimes the way the builds run out, you just really need one guy to make the cut. You're going to rely on your other 5 guys to carry the team, and you just need some DK points out of these guys. So we transition into it. We still give our full analysis, of course, but first we start off with if they're going to make the cut or not. Right away, this guy, he made it into an important lineup for me. I know we relied on his putting at the Sony, but Corey Connors, right below the 2 guys we just talked about at 7,900, decent course history. I like him this week.
Corey Connors is, listen, you know what you're getting. He's a ball striking machine. He's one of the best tee to green. He can't putt. He completely bucked the trend at Sony. You just mentioned this. He gained 5 strokes putting. that it almost feels like a waste, because if you think that Corey Connors is going to gain 5 strokes putting, you assume he's going to win.
To win, yeah.
He doesn't do that too often. He gained 2 at Valero and he won. Yep. That's really what you're asking there. I think he finds the weekend. Not my preferred guy. It's Wolf. It's Berger who's right below him.
Yep. So I'll go rapid fire with the next 3 since they're all priced together. Kokrak, Berger, Harman, all relatively to a little degree popular. All maybe around 10%. Kokrak, a nice bounce back round last week. I went to Harman here. I think, his game is very good, very consistent right now. He seems back in. I do have a little Berger. I have no Kokrak again. I'd rather play the other 2 guys than Kokrak. I just think that regression is going to set in.
Yeah, I agree. The around the green game was the difference for me. Kokrak, even during his just stupid run of luck box, his around the green game was always bad, and it's still bad. There's a lot of bunkers here. Berger and Harman much better in that category. Now, off the tee, of course, Kokrak does have the advantage, but the short game made the difference for me. I'm right in line with you on that front.
Yeah, I just have highlighted on the screen share the insane run that he went on. This was just part of it. Just
hole in ones, just stupidity.
Nothing on the screen share. You guys can't see anything on the screen share again. I don't know why. It keeps going down. Maybe it's when I'm switching things. Anyways,
it's sad. It's Kokrak and Spieth. Let that anyone watching just keep that in the back of your mind.
Put them both in the same lineup and don't play them anywhere else. For the most part.
Self-exclude.
We should be back on the screen share. If we're not, let me know. I will. I'll go through it again. Okay, so we talked about Brian Harman. We talked about Dan Berger. Seems like are you in on Brian Harman? Sorry, I didn't. I got kind of he'll play the weekend, but not.
Yeah, I think Harman is fine. He's in my cash lineup. Okay. Just a state. I'll put it like this. I never actively seek out Harman, but when I land on him, I'm completely comfortable with it. That's just how I feel about him. He's a good player, and I think he plays fine.
Okay, good. That's very fair. Okay, so the next batch of guys that I want to talk about, Keegan Bradley had a great week last week. I think that course and that tournament is perfect for his game. I don't think this one is. I just don't love him in lower scoring events. I went to Russell Knox there. Then we get into the real interesting ones. Well, let's talk about these 2 guys before we move on to one of our faves.
So Keegan, it's tough. He seems to be playing pretty well. He's another guy, though. He has listen, there's I don't want to say it's a bias. I certainly played some guys with this lethal combo of bad putter, bad scrambler. That's a big red flag to me. Keegan's one of those guys. He's a terrible scrambler and he's a terrible putter. I'm concerned about that. Russell Knox is playing good. I actually had him quite a bit last week. And although he wasn't great, he paid
dividends. Yeah,
he did fine. But I know where we're going, and I think it's one of the more important points of the entire podcast. So let's get to it.
Yeah, surging all week. It's been on, and he has good course history here. His price has come down significantly, and I think that's just throwing people into him. I think he's gonna be like Aaron Wise was 2 weeks ago, where Wise came up to like 25% owned in the $400. I think Ben Odd gets very similar to that. That's a huge red flag to me. He just doesn't seem like he's in as good a form as he has been or as consistent as he has been. We can go to, obviously, the strokes gained screen. Hopefully you guys can see it. And it just doesn't look all that great. Are you fading the chalk here as well?
So I'll say a couple things. A couple weeks ago, you wonder why Wise was like 20% on the I think those were just all my teams. That's neither here nor there. I single-handedly drove that up.
Okay, fair enough.
Big mistake. Listen, so Benyon lost 7 strokes putting last week, which is something that's outrageous. The ball striking has not been crisp, though. He gained with the irons. He was bad off the tee again. I'm a little worried here. Now, as it stands, I have him in my lineups. I have a lot of Benyon. I am starting to come around to maybe looking, a lot of times I build and then I will go back and I will start 2v2ing to drive down exposures on someone. Someone like JT Poston, Bud Cauley, even your boy Andrew Putnam. These guys are going to be 1/5, 1/6 the ownership maybe in certain tournaments. I might look to reduce some Benyon. I'm definitely going to have plenty. He's a great scrambler. He was great here last year. Then on Sunday, he shot 76. He had like 4 water balls. God, that was so gross.
Oof.
But I'm gonna try to keep it in reason because I definitely see the red flags that you were pointing to.
Yeah, I will say I think he plays the weekend, so staying true to form. I would just rather pivot to Poston Putnam. I'd rather go to the P's. I'd rather go to the putters in the approach games of those guys right now. I like them, and I think they're consistent enough off the tee that they're not going to get themselves into any trouble. They're not good off the tee. They're consistent enough. And at this course, the shortness of it, the length, you don't have to have Keith Mitchell type driving distance power here, or Cam Champ, or whoever you want to use, Rory's distance, whomever. So I like more of those mid-tier plays. And I think even from those guys, which obviously I think they're going to make the weekend, is another guy, Kevin Na, who fits almost the exact same category as Putnam and Poston. Just a really good putter, has been hot with his irons. You're going to get, versus Ben Anon, same price, you're going to get maybe a fourth of the ownership, maybe a fifth. I'd rather put my stakes into Kevin Na. I've made it clear. You play Kevin Na in cut events. You fade him in no cut events.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Na's another just – I think he's a very reasonable leverage pivot against Ben-An. That's what this range is. He is a polarizing guy. Now, he was hanging out with Joseph from chat. This is what I'm talking about. He was hanging out with Josh Allen, apparently, which is like – that is the kiss of death for me. That's probably my favorite football player. It's going to be a dangerous game, but you want to make sure if you're making a so this is, and then we can get back to the golfers, but just a little tangent. When I build, one of the things I try to think is, where is my leverage? When I'm like really aggressive up top, say I have Bryson and Spieth, well, then I probably am more inclined to use Ben-An on that team because I don't need to take a third shot with Kevin Na. But if I'm very vanilla up top, maybe I'll pivot in this range with some of these other guys and hope, all right, if carnage occurs and Ben-An gets cut, this is where this type of lineup can weasel through.
Yeah, and there's certainly debate. I was listening to another podcast that had the number one player on it this week and was listening to his strategy a little bit. The guys over at Daily Roto, good podcast there. They were talking specifically just about this, about how looking at your lineup and saying, where am I getting leverage is more important than necessarily the total ownership of the lineup or the total ownership per player. You can have a lineup with four or five really chalky guys, but have the leverage on a 0% owned guy that you have a good read on, and no one's going to have the lineup, and you'll still have a ton of leverage, of course, if the chalk hits. So a lot of ways to look at it there, of course, but I like that train of thought. I like that feeling. So I'm guessing, Kevin Na, it sounds like you got him playing the weekend?
Yeah, I think, listen, I honestly could make a case for any of these guys. Now, I will say, this Make the Cut segment, I do like to go through it. More guys are going to make the weekend, just percentage-based. Yeah. It's a lot easier to make this cut. So that is something to consider. I think it opens up to take more chances. And you know what? You can kind of get away with some leverage pivots because you're probably not going to get burned as often because there's 25 blank spots in the field.
Vaughn Taylor was 40% owned in some single entry contest 2 weeks ago. It was insane. I've never seen anything like it. He was a good fit, maybe.
And then he shot
shot 9 under on Saturday to make the cut on the money. Didn't do much on Sunday, but still he got points and did what he's supposed to. Looks like ownership's going to be below 10%, maybe right at it. I think maybe the Vaughn Taylor session for the time being is done. How about you?
Not super into Vaughn Taylor. Listen, he's someone who always garners interest in cash. He always does kind of his thing. He's usually a pretty high floor guy. I know we're talking about golf, so floor is relative. It's more binary. Do you make cuts? I have no interest in him this week, so that kind of tells you where I'm at. Maybe he finds the weekend, but I'm not there.
Billy Horschel has yet to miss a cut in a real long time. Here. I shouldn't say that. Here. So with that being said, are you interested in him at all? He maybe flashed a little bit of form, but the ball striking still looked terrible last week. And that's when Billy Horschel, it's a really tell. If he's hitting the ball well, you can likely suspect him to come into a top finish because he's a very good putter. Statistically, he's a very, very good putter. You can see from the numbers here, gaining almost 10, gaining almost 8. Are you ready yet, or the ball striking is not quite there for you?
Well, he's not playing good. There's no doubt. Really, the thing weighing with Billy Horschel, we got a significant price drop. That is helpful. This was a guy that he was like in the 9s for a while in comparable fields. So you're getting a discount on what I think is a good player. He's a Florida guy, in terms of grass type with the Bermuda and whatnot. I think it's fine. Now, Charlie Hoffman closed on Sunday with a fantastic round. Now he's going to get some ownership because of this. Now he's steamed because of that. God, that's a tough one. I have exposure to both these guys because of the price, but that is one that I think you need to be careful with both of those guys for very different reasons.
So Hoffman's a waste management guy. I think he's maybe the only waste management sponsor. I don't know if that really means anything, but he does wear the green glove. He's got the bag. It's pretty cool. I mean, I like his getup, especially for this event. It's pretty cool. Now, am I going to play him? The putter was real hot, and that's why he got the top 10. And as you can see, that's kind of where it goes. When his putter is on, the rest of his game follows. That's got to stay this week. I'm not really sure I like anybody in this range, especially this year's early runner for Jason Kokrak, and that's Tom Hoge. I mean, this guy, 3 straight weeks, 3 straight top 10s. Putting has been insane. Approaches have been insane. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, he's I wouldn't know because I find out that Tom Hoge, so we have some sharp people in chat. We have the Hoge Whisperer. He mentions him every Tuesday. I think about him then. Then I don't remember him till Saturday, and I'm like, oh, yeah, wow, he's in 3rd. Like, this is kind of weird. He's playing fantastic. He is gaining strokes with the irons, but also putting like a god. Yep. I have minimal interest. The guy that I want to bring up, kind of a dark horse for me, is Bo Hostler. Showed some life last week, and we know he's a crazy good putter. First time in a long time, going back to the 3M where he gained off the tee and with the approach. Now, it wasn't significant, but it's a sign of positivity for sure. I went to him, and then Griot is at the same price. I'm trying to keep it reasonable. He missed on the number last week. Another short game, atrocious, putting, atrocious.
And it's weird because Jordan Spieth came out and said he thought Griot was the best fast putter in the world ever.
So
really looked it last week.
I saw that comment from, and I say you boy a lot, but Spieth really is.
Yes, Spieth is, yeah.
That's the most concerning thing. He's obviously lost his mind to say, yeah, I saw that. So just for people who may not know what we're talking about, Spieth is claiming that Griot is the best, because these are very fast greens, is the best fast greens putter he's ever seen. Now, Griot, I don't know anything about golf, but I know enough to know he's the worst putter I may have ever seen. Just end the sentence. I'm very shocked at that. But he's a ball striking god, and he's one of my favorites. Definitely have some, but I don't know about this whole he's a fast green putting guru.
Well, here, I mean, I will say he did gain almost a stroke last week with this putter. The around the green game was atrociously bad, and it's not really normally that bad for him. Maybe a couple of times. The Northern Trust, which is interesting because it was a rather tough golf course out on Jersey, right? It's just across the city of Jersey City, the Trump one. And then again last week at Torrey, where around the green, really difficult. The rough was really high. We're not going to get that this week here. So I don't mind Griot that much. I'll take Griot over Charlie Hoffman, over JB Holmes. Again, why does he keep changing?
Kokrak, Spieth, and Griot.
Kokrak, Spieth, and Griot. I mean, if you want to make a lineup
with the guys who break screen share,
the guys who break screen share. Now, somebody should be taking note of this because it's awesome. It's great. I probably clicked right too fast. I don't know. Anyways, man, that is heartburn city though. If you roster those 3 guys, let's be honest.
Yeah,
especially if you're using Shot Tracker.
Don't do that.
So quickly on JB Holmes, he bombs the ball, pops up every now and again. Was his pop up last week? He's all done, not making the cut.
Nah, yeah, not for me. Okay. People were on him last week as a flyer, and it panned out to an extent. I'm not going to chase that. For me, there's other guys, whether I look to Martin Laird was brought up in chat as like a very off-the-wall play. Is a desert.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, local Laird. We'll call him local Laird. He's actually had 3 really good finishes here. And I did want to bring him up. I'm glad that you did. I think he easily makes the cut again. His putting was really good last week, and 2 weeks ago, his ball striking is really good. So if we can put those two together, obviously I think we've got a chance for a decent finish, and he obviously can provide some salary flexibility. So, all right, I think that covers a lot of the guys. Let's get into some of the egregious plays from our chat if you want to, and then maybe we can give some of our own.
Sure, let's do it.
All right, I'll go rapid fire. We already covered Kevin Na, and it seems like we're both interested.
Yeah, I don't mind him.
So now we'll go to the 7,200 guys. We've got a pair of them. Denny McCarthy, or 3 of them, I should say. Denny McCarthy, Lanto Griffin, and Sebastian Munoz. Any interest in any of the 3?
Not really. For me, Denny McCarthy's made a lot of cuts in a row, but Martin Laird probably takes that. Munoz is the one who I would look to, but he's starting to, kind of some chinks in the armor here. So, and not an interest in any of those guys now.
Lanto Griffin,
he's fine, but still.
Yeah. Okay. So Lanto, I followed him. I ended on him on my top lineup last week, which reminded me why I did that, because I wasn't really high on him to begin with, but I wanted to get away from the Ryan Palmer chalk, and I felt so good about it through 4 holes. That's another story for another time, obviously, because he ended up, going 10 under on day 2. What I do like about Griffin is he lost 3 strokes putting in the 1 round. He missed 6 of his first 8 putts inside of 10 feet on the day. I think that probably changes this week. I don't think the greens are going to be as hard. They'll be as fast, but not as hard. Ball striking was still there. Around the green was still there. So I'm okay rolling some shares back in. I'm not going to lie.
It's not a bad time to jump back on. I will say that, Lanto was someone, and listen, guys are going to miss cuts. I didn't think the South course was particularly a good fit for him last week. I'm not going to hold that against him. But there's just so many guys down here. When you look at flyers, the Sun Kangs, the Domans of the world, there's just a lot of bodies to try to allocate for.
There certainly is. Okay, so as we dip down, we got a few more from our buddy in chat coolers. I see Hideki, Appy Barnrat, Brian Gay, and our nemesis of the show, Kyle Stanley.
Oh, Kyle Stanley. Kyle Stanley times are tough. All right. Appy Barnrat, listen, he's a guy he can get crazy out on Bermuda, not really playing well. Kyle Stanley, his irons have gone away. I thought they were trending upward. That did not come to fruition.
Nope.
I took my flyers with Aaron Wise at the same price.
Wise, you did it.
Yeah, not crazy exposure, but a lot more than everyone else watching this show. And then Brian Gay, just another guy who's just not playing well. He actually lost across the board at American Express from what we can see. 3 straight missed cuts. Probably not for me either.
Yeah, tough. I don't mind Brian Gay. I'm not going to lie. I don't think he's missed a cut here in a little bit as I scroll down my page. Hopefully I'm not clicking everybody off. I'm out on Hideki, Appy Barnrat as well. I think maybe his time has passed. Maybe not. I mean, he'll still be fine on the Euro Tour. Here, I'm not really sure. Like I said, I'm okay with Brian Gay. How about Sam Burns, who's really turned it around? Like all of a sudden had that really good round at the Amex to get him inside the top 10. Another 6 strokes or 4.5 strokes gained ball striking last week. I'm starting to turn back into Sam Burns, and I went down this rabbit hole last year. I think I'm digging it again.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Sam Burns is a guy, he got hurt at the end of the year, and then it turned out he came back immediately. I think he broke his ankle at one point.
You played basketball, right? Something like that?
Yeah, playing basketball, and he seems to be good to go. He is a Bermuda guy from what I can see. I think he's from the South. I think he went to LSU, actually. I may be.
Yes, he did. No, you're right. Yep, he did.
Don't think I don't know what's going on. Sam Burns is playing well, though. 6,800, no problem. Actually, a guy I feel pretty comfortable with.
Yeah, not going to lie, me too. I don't know if I have him in any of my bigger lineups at this point, but he'll probably slide in, to lineup 4 or 5. Good salary protection. All right, so 921, I think we can do our egregious plays and hot takes, if you will. And then I'll do a little 5 minutes on Fantasy Cruncher, just running through things for anybody that is new to the show tonight or wants to see what Fantasy Cruncher has to offer. We'll go over that. So top one is on my screen right now. This guy needs a top 25 to retain his PGA Tour card. He's got one more start to do it. Don't get me wrong. If he doesn't come, actually, it's 112 points, which is more like a top 10. I apologize. It's 112 FedEx Cup points. Talking about Trey Mullinax, he made the cut after holing out from the bunker on 18 last week. It was an awesome story. Somebody who was following him videoed it because he saw what he was doing, and he went. I think he even shot 6 under on the day to do it too. So really good story. Came in 15th at late here last year. Super good with his wedges. Obviously a bomber off the tee. Lost 3 strokes putting last week in the 3 rounds. So maybe that reverses. I've got Mullinax getting inside the top 25 as one hot take. But since it's not hot takey enough, I'll give you my other one. I think we're going to get at least one top 5 out of Wolf, Hovland, and Scheffler.
Okay, so young gun going to compete.
Yep.
I don't mind that. I will say real quick, Mullinax, he was awful with the putter. He luck boxed his way into the cut.
Love it.
He's a interesting guy towards the bottom. Killa Keith is there. I think he's going to garner some interest. JJ Spawn, a totally different player, but I have a little. Chat, I'm going to give my hot take in 1 sec. Chat did ask about Chase and Hadley. I didn't get there.
Okay.
I just wanted to know if you did.
In GPP, I did more so because I like the course history, and plus we just saw him at the Amex in what I feel is a similar type of event courses. We saw him gain pretty well on again, so I'm going with that desert course narrative here for Hadley. Nothing serious. I think he's going to come in at 2%, so I've got him somewhere in the 5 to 7% range.
Fair enough. I listen. There's some guys, Chris Kirk is down there. Grayson is down there. Chappell. There's a lot of guys you don't want to use. We say this every week. It's fine to go down there, but you don't want to have 15. I really think it's a mistake to have like 10 or 15 of those guys. Pick a couple, use them to fill out the back end of rosters. My hot take is going to be that a South Korean wins the tournament. I like Ben Yan quite a bit in the outright market. Sunjae Im as well. I think you could look there, and then we have KH Lee at the bottom.
Kim, and don't forget Si Woo Kim, my man. I mean, he shot 85 the last time he played, but he's in the field again.
Si Woo, you never know. And I say that not joking. You just don't know.
You just don't know what you're gonna get.
No, you have no idea. But I do think this tournament is open, and I know Sunjae and Ben Yan are still they're gonna get there eventually. Both played very well last year. Rickie was in control. Then the ball, I'm not to go backwards. That was the tournament where Rickie's ball, he dropped it, then it rolled in the water again. He almost blew it. That was the Super Bowl. So yeah. I don't think, Sun Kang. Chat, this is what I'm talking about.
Kang. You got Kang in there too. That's right. You've got a couple of more guys.
We got some dudes.
I like it. Here's what I'll say about KH Lee. I was actually going to bring him up towards the end. He's one of those guys that has been really hot with the putter. I mean, check this. 3 out of his last 4, he's gained over 4 strokes. A couple of those, he's gained over 6 strokes, so it's real good. The other guy I wanted to bring up, and I mean, this guy, I absolutely love it, and I'm almost assured you do too. The embracing of Zach Sucher that he is taking upon our industry. It's awesome. I love it. I love to see it. Also, when we look at the statistical side, you and I have talked a lot about putting and approaches this week as what this golf course can do. I mean, this guy combined over the last 2 tournaments, we're looking at close to 2.5 strokes in those 2 categories combined, gaining in both. Could he be in play this week at 6,300?
So I think Zach Sucher, the problem, he's playing, he made the cut last week. He shows some signs. The problem is that it actually matters what he's doing relative to his ownership. People in the DFS community like this guy, and they're going to play him more than they should. You don't get those ownership points back, and that makes it a little tougher for me to get to a guy that I used to be able to take 2% and get leverage. I don't know. He might garner a couple, and he's not going to be popular, but he's not going to be 0% owned either.
I think he'll be popular if you do play in the listener leagues of like say the Pat Mayo or the single entries that are really dominated by this DFS Twitter bubble, if you will. I think his ownership could like get to 10% in some of those things. I still think which is very large, right?
He would be 1% owned if this didn't happen. Correct.
No doubt about it.
That's
5% maybe in the $5 GPP.
Yeah.
Does that make him a viable play? Like you said, he's seems like a steady player right now, or seems like a good fit. But again, you could go to a bunch of guys around him. And hey, if you happen to be watching this, if you like consuming the DFS content, we appreciate you watching. And it's not that I don't like it. It's just that now in a game theory perspective, if I can go to Hudson Swafford at the same price or Brendan Hagee at the same price for 0% ownership, if I was going to have 5% or 10% suture, I'd cut that in half and shift those shares to those guys just for the pure game theory play that if 5% or 10% of the field's going to have them, okay, well, it seems overweight for a 6,300 guy. Again, Zach, I love what you're doing, Zach. Keep up. But
great. Rooting for him.
Yeah, me too.
But that's not how it works. Like I said, you don't get those ownership points back. I'm living proof. Say what you want about Grayson Murray off the course, and there's a lot to say. I think last year people did not want to play him. He's kind
of similar too. Yeah.
It was the opposite of what we're seeing here. That stuff matters, especially when you're talking about a guy who's 6,300. So definitely rooting for him. It's awesome for the industry. Hope to keep it up. I hope he keeps interacting. It's very, very cool.
He sure is. Okay. One last egregious one, then we'll go into my quick little FC tutorial. Just got it from Davian in our chat. It is Adam Long versus JJ Spawn. I just saw you respond to it, and it looks like we're aligning here. JJ Spawn seems like this is a good swing for him, this area of the country. San Diego he's played good at. He's played here good. He's played up in Las Vegas, which is kind of the triangle, if you will, of these three areas. He's played good there. So if I had to pick one of those two, I'd go Spawn here.
Same. Listen, Spawn is someone showed some life last week. We'll see if that's just a blip on the radar. Maybe not. He's been hurt so many times. Nothing major, but it seems like he never gets in a flow. So I prefer him over Adam Long. I'll just say that much. Both carry extreme risk.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll head to my fantasy cruncher, and I gotta ask Dave, why does Jordan Spieth come up first every time? I don't put him there. I promise you.
That's what they all say.
I promise you I don't put him there. So in any case, okay. So we're going to just go through, it's 9:28. So I just give at the end of our show here, I just give quick little tutorial on some of the things I do to get started in making my lineup. So the first thing I'll do is, of course, I will upload my data here. It's pretty simple. I just copy and paste my projections from my model that I obviously give to Osmo Plus members. Had a few questions. Do I take the make your own model or the base rating model? I average the two together. Just simple. The reason why I don't care too much about that is because the guys that I want, I'm going to go in and I'm going to make sure that I get. So I've done this last week. If Victor Hovland is my top play of the week, I'm going to put him at 100 points so that I know his value over here is 11.9. So no matter what exposure I put him at, Fantasy Cruncher will 100% give me the exposure that I'm looking for, as long as that value is higher than everybody else's. Pretty simple. Okay, so for my core plays, that's exactly what I'll do. I'll go in and change their projection to get their value higher than everybody else, so I'm assured to get it. Now, if I don't use randomness, I will get similar lineups. Every single one will give me Hovland and Scheffler and so on. So how do I go about that? Pretty simple, using normal distribution randomness. Also, I'll use one unique player per lineup so that I make sure I get different. And I'll go randomness anywhere between 25 and 40%. I'll start with 25% so that I make sure that I'm getting that differential. If I don't like the differential, I'll go to 40%. Quickly, I'll run through groups and we can end here. Now, the other way to do it, other than the way that I just said, is go into groups, go in and put your guys in. Now, I'm going to take the three guys that I said. One of them will come in the top five. And I want to use at least two of these guys. It, of course, is another way for me to use that rule. It will confine and constrict Fantasy Cruncher build rules, of course. But those are two things to make sure that I get the allocations that I say in my winning element. Those are ways that I do it and make sure that I get those allocations. So just want to run through that quickly. Of course, Ben and I are in the Osmo Slack chat. I'll answer any questions. I mentioned earlier that the medicine that they got me on, prednisone or whatever it is, it gets me wired. So I'll probably be up until the wee hours of the night making lineups.
I won't.
Yeah, come join me. I'll keep you company in the Slack chat. Other than that, Ben, you want to send us off here? It's been a good show. Thanks.
It has been. Like I said, it's a real one of my favorite early season tournaments. We get Shot Tracker the whole time. You have a couple hours in the morning before a lock, especially if you're on the East Coast. But we'd love to have you guys as part of Slack. Stay tuned. Super Bowl is Sunday. I'm sure you all know. We're going to have some content coming up. We got a big show coming Friday. We've got plenty of stuff. So stay tuned for that. We'd love to have you guys hop in. We're going to be talking about the game, talking about props, doing all that good stuff. And on that note, we're going to bounce on out of here. But good luck, everyone. And we will be back next Wednesday, same time, same place.